to Church Unleashed. Come on now, somebody. Well, who's glad to be in God's house today? Hey, we want to welcome you guys watching online. Thank you guys for joining us online, but I got to tell you, there is nothing like being in the building. And to our friends and family in the overflow, we love you. Come on, let them hear you guys. To all of our guests, my name is Todd Bishop. My wife and I lead this wonderful church, and we're glad you guys are here. To all of our guests, thank you for joining us. I met a few of you guys. Really grateful to have you guys with us today. And to our regulars, come on, this is church every Sunday. Well, today I want to spend some time talking about this theme called the ride of your life. The ride of your life. It's so interesting. I always wanted to get another motorcycle, but my wife won't let me. So, honey, thank you for the scooter. Nothing like riding the Hope Mobile. We're going to sell that thing. Anybody want that thing? Doesn't it look good? We'll sell that thing. Tell you a funny story about that. I was testing it out this week, and one of our staff members said, I want to go for a ride on that thing. They sat on it, and it didn't move. Apparently, the battery died. It was not a weight issue. Okay. Well, there's a story in the Old Testament that's, the Old Testament, for those of you who are new, is the books of the Bible that were written before Jesus' time on earth. There's a story in the Old Testament that's kind of crazy. Two characters, a man and a woman, they're both husband and wife, are about to go on the ride of their lives. Here enters Abraham and Sarah. Sarah could not have children. And so in the Old Testament, during Bible times, this was seen as a very negative thing. And so for her not to be able to have children was very tough. And so God ends up giving them a promise that they're going to have children. Now, they're not young. They're a little bit older. God gives them a promise they're going to have children. And so this is the story we're going to talk about today. And I think it was a long journey to God's promise that actually took place. God promised this couple they'd have a son. They're waiting and waiting and waiting. They wait 24 years. Some of us can't wait 24 seconds. They wait 24 years. And in this process of waiting is where we're going to come into this story. 24 years into the story of waiting. An angel appears to them and issues this promise to Abraham. He's having a conversation with Abraham and says this, I will return to you about this time next year. Can everybody say next year? And your wife Sarah will have a son. Now think about this for a moment. They've already been waiting 24 years. Now an angel shows up and says, yeah, but now this is the real time. How many of you ever felt like that? God gave you a word. He gave you a promise. You were waiting, then God gave you another promise. Like, is this really it? This was the time that all their dreams, all their hopes, everything they ever looked for was about to come to pass. Abraham, at this point, at the time of the promise, was 75 years old. Now he's much older now. He's a year away. Sarah was 65 when that promise first came. Now they're 99 and 69. Did I do that right in my head? No, 89. Think about this, 99 to 89 years old. Here's Sarah's response when she hears 1 year from now, you're going to hear this. So she laughed silently to herself. She was listening, and she leaned into this story as Abraham's having a conversation with the angel and says, hey, by this time next year, you're going to have, and she starts, we've been waiting 24 years. I'm now 89 years old. Come on, ladies. Come on, let me talk to all the moms in the house. Come on, up to, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Can you imagine 89 years old? I'm ready. Send me a son. How many would choose adoption at that point? Come on, men. Hey, babe, maybe we'll just watch somebody else's kids. I don't have the patience anymore. So imagine how they're feeling, the emotions they're going through. The Bible says she laughed to herself and said, how could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is so old? Throw the man under the bus. That's exactly what Sarah does. Literally, like, hey, I could handle this. But how could he do it? He's even older than I am. So they're waiting 24 years of this joyride. Abraham is now 100 years old. Sarah's now 90 years old. And here's what the Bible says. This is the 25th year. The Lord kept his word and did for Sarah exactly as he had promised. She became pregnant. Now, if I'm Abraham, I'm like, Lord, maybe that promise you could have not accomplished because we're very old. And we're now going to have a crying, diaper, trashing, vomit, projectiling human in the house. Becomes pregnant. She's 90 years old. She gives birth to a son. He's 100. And this happened just as God said it would. Talk about the ride of your life. 24 years of waiting. Then by this time next year, you're going to have a baby. 25 total years of waiting for God's promise. How many of you have ever felt like you've been waiting 25 years? It seems like, God, I know you got a promise. I know you've got something, but I've been waiting a heck of a long time to see it come to pass. This could be your by this time next year. Come on now. Imagine 2020. 2020 has been the dream killer. 2021 will be the dream fulfiller. We believe God's going to turn it all around. He's going to bring beauty out of the ashes. The joy's coming in the morning, the ride of your life. What would your response be if you were Sarah? Sarah had an interesting response. Here's what she said. God has brought me laughter, and all who hear about it will laugh with me. At the fulfillment of her having a son, her and Abraham, who knows what he was doing? He was probably sweating somewhere in a corner. But here's Sarah. She says, everyone's going to laugh with me. The first thing she did when she heard in 1 year you're going to have a son is she laughed to herself. When the son finally came, the first thing she does after many hours of pain, she laughs again. The first laugh was sarcasm. The second laugh was sacred. She knew, God, you have fulfilled your promise to me. You are who you said you were. You do what you promised, and I can take it to the bank and trust God in every season and every situation, even when you've been waiting for what seems to be an eternity. I'm here to tell you, this is your by this time next year. You don't have to be restricted or feel like, man, it's just the end. No, this is just your new beginning. God got your attention. Now I pray he keeps your attention as you propel forward. 25 years of waiting. Talk about a wild ride. Have you ever had a point where God spoke to you, maybe in a service, maybe in your prayer time, and you just kind of chuckled at God? Where you were like, no, that ain't never going to happen. Come on, God is always about the ain't never going to happen. Like, come on now. Think about this. You can be butt ugly and still marry a gorgeous girl. Come on now. That's a but God moment. Hello. Some of you are still stuck in the first phrase. Like, can you say that? Some of you got a job you didn't deserve. Your resume, you were not qualified, and yet God opened the door. That's a but God moment. Some of you are thinking, like, I can't believe I got this pay raise in 2020. That's a but God moment. Some of you think, man, I had this pain right here. I went to the doctor. It ended up being just late night gas. I got to lay off the pizza. Thank God. That's a but God moment. Some of you are thinking it's going to be more serious. It's going to be, and yet, but God. Come on now, somebody. This is the God we serve. What he promises, he will always come through on. But have you ever had that moment where God says, hey, I want you, Todd Bishop, to move to Long Island? No. And then God sends me here. I meet my beautiful bride. If I would have stayed where I was, I would never have what I have today. Come on now. Some of you, there's a lesson in there for you. If you stay where you are, you'll never get what God's designed you to be. You got to believe that this is my year. By this time next year, you'll have the promise. I believe today, November 15th, 2020, we're going to see miracles by November 15th, 2021. Things that you've been praying for, things that you've been believing for, things that you've been hoping for. By this time next year. Abraham and Sarah go on this 25-year joyride. Have you ever doubted God's plan? You ever wondered or questioned God's timing? You ever been conflicted over a word God's given you? Here's what I discovered years ago. No matter how long it takes, God will always get you to where you're designed to be. No matter how long it takes. You may be feeling like, man, it's not been 25 years. It's like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Hold on. Buckle your spiritual belt and enjoy the ride. Enjoy where God's taking you, because in the ride, God's changing your life. He's adjusting you. He's removing things from your life that will only hold you back and keep you down. God is preparing you for the destiny. It may be delayed, the promise, but the promises of God are never denied. Come on, that's good preaching. That's better preaching than a few amens. They may be delayed, but they are never denied. What God promises, he always comes through on. He accomplishes and finishes what he begins every single time. Here's what I know about life. You can never let the ride become routine. You can never let the ride become routine. You know what I've learned in my life? Nothing's ever routine. Come on now. Things are different every single day. So that's the same thing. I get up, I eat my oatmeal, have some bacon. Next day I'll do some eggs. Another day I'll do some sausage. And you know, okay, now I start it all over. I go back to my oatmeal and my bacon. Then I get my eggs. And then I start it all over again. Do you realize that you being able to eat is a gift from God? It is not routine. You being able to run to the grocery store is not routine, and who knows how long that's going to last. You doing what God has called you to do, there's nothing routine about it. Every day is a gift from God. Every day is an opportunity for you to do exactly what God designed you to do. Yeah, but today seems boring. Enjoy the boredom, because when the craziness comes, you're going to wish you had some boredom in your life. I think everyone wants it hyper speed all the time, or maybe that's just me because I don't ever stop. Everybody wants keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then when it's boredom, you're like, and you just start all over again. Enjoy the moments of nothing. Because when the promise comes, that nothing becomes something. And then you realize, oh man, I should have rested and got refreshed while I was waiting instead of complaining while I waited and exhausted myself. Because bitterness doesn't make you better. Bitterness does not make you better. Bitter makes you bitter. It just keeps you from enjoying the blessings and the hand of God. At some point in our lives, we trade the adventure of the journey for the prison of routine. Maybe I should say it again. At some point in our lives, we trade in the adventure of the journey for the prison of the routine. And we stop enjoying every moment. Come on, I'm like a kid in a candy store every day. What else can we do in church? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ride a Razor scooter that was donated from somebody out of the trash. I'm going to fix that thing. Me and Brendan and Steve, we rewired that thing. We were sitting, like sparks flew at one point. We're not going to talk about that. But we rewired a battery, and you know, we started at like 5 miles an hour. Is that not true, Brendan? Next thing you know, we're at like 15 miles an hour. I'm like, oh. much bigger than that vehicle. But it's enjoying every part of life. When's the last time you just watched a movie and said, thank you, God, for television? Instead of, can't believe I got to watch the same thing over and over again. When's the last time you said, hey, thank you, God, I get to come to church? Oh, man, I can't have more than 10 people at Thanksgiving. I won't tell. I'm just saying. If you don't want to post on social media, send me all your pics and I will post for you. Talk about a prison of routine. I remember when I sensed God's call on my life to come down to Long Island almost 20 years ago. I never wanted to come here. I only thought I'd be here 6 months. True story. Never wanted to come here. Never wanted to come anywhere near New York City. I'm an upstate guy. I believe in certain things. I do certain things. I love certain things that many people down here don't like, believe, or support. Like some of the amendments. I'll leave it right there. You know what I'm saying? It's a thing called the Constitution that we love. Anybody love the Constitution? Grateful we live in a great country? So, when I came down to Long Island, you know what I had in my garage before I moved here? I had a 1992 Mustang convertible, 5-speed, black, leather interior convertible. I had a Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle, 500cc, a little small. Some of you are like, I don't know what that means. It's just small. But it was fun. Fun. By the way, I shouldn't admit this, but I never had a license for my motorcycle. That's a true story. I just drove it wherever I went. When I get pulled over, you know what I would say? Well, the guy I was driving with, he got ahead of me. He has his license, because if you got your permit, you're good to go. Anyway, I shouldn't even admit that, but it's a true story. I also had a boat in my garage. I had a Mustang, a motorcycle, and a boat. When I came to Long Island, I traded it all in for a Toyota Corolla. I went from a convertible to a Corolla. And then Mary and I upgraded to a minivan. Come on, somebody. Do you ever think there were times, and I was single when I first came here, you ever think there were times when I was thinking, man, I wish I had that Mustang. Wish I had that motorcycle. There are always going to be times where we pause and we're like, wait. But then we have to say, wait, if I never came to Long Island, if I never came to a place I never wanted to go, I would have never met my wife, we would have never had our children that we have, and I never would have started this church. Instead of complaining about the journey, you don't know where the journey is going to take you, so enjoy the ride. Enjoy what God is saying. Enjoy what God is doing in your life. Do you ever think that Abraham and Sarah doubted the promise? You ever think they doubted the plan of God? We know they do. Why? They created a plan B. I think some of you are whining and crying in your plan B instead of waiting for God's plan A. I can't believe it. We live in New York. Let's move to South Dakota. They're wide open. There's low taxes. Come on now. Have you never thought that in the last 7 months? You're on drugs or something, because everyone's thinking about leaving. But at some point, you got to say this. God, you have placed me on Long Island. There is a plan and a purpose. And yes, we live in a liberal state, but God has put some Jesus-loving, devil-stomping, fire-breathing, wild kind of people. They're saying, God, as long as I'm here, I'm going to honor you. As long as I'm here, I'm going to raise your name. As long as I am here, I'm going to enjoy the ride, because I don't want the ride to ever become routine. I want to enjoy every single moment. Now, how many of you know you cannot move God's hand? God's hand moves you. I think a lot of us are trying to move God's hand instead of God move me, change me, adjust me. Have you ever tried to get God to bend to your will? I heard a friend of mine say this years ago. If you win an argument with God, you lose. But if you lose an argument with God, you win. I think some of us are trying to win arguments with God. We're trying to enjoy the moment and adjusting God's plan. I can tell you this, changing God's will never works. He's got a plan for your life and a purpose. God doesn't bend to us. We bend to him. We bend to his will. And I believe that routine can become the greatest dream-killing machine in your life. If you allow it just to be routine instead of every day saying, thank you, Jesus, it's going to be a good day. Enjoy the journey. Celebrate the twists and the turns. Be grateful you're still alive today. Be grateful you're still breathing. Not everything will happen on your timetable or in your way, but sometimes you just got to enjoy the journey. If you want to take the ride of your life, you got to run from the cage of routine. Nothing is routine about today. In fact, today is the only November 15th, 2020 you will ever get. It's not routine. It's one of a kind. In fact, the second we are in is one of a kind. You being in church is not routine. You being here, listening to God's word and worshiping with God's family, there is nothing routine about that. And the moment we treat it as routine, we won't enjoy the moment we're in. I want to enjoy the moment when I'm with God's family. I don't want to be, oh man, what do we got to do later? What do I got to get done? I got to run here. I got to do this. Hey, God has got all our attention in 2020. And I think we discovered some of us have a higher deficiency with ADD than we thought. We have a spiritual ADD that the coronavirus couldn't even get our attention with. Yes, online, I'm talking to you. Get back to church. It's time to come home. It's time to listen to the men and women of God that are loving you, praying for you, believing with you, not the ones taxing you, and that's free for nothing. The Bible declares this, don't love money. Don't love money. Be satisfied with what you have. That's a command, not a suggestion. Are you satisfied with what you have? If what you have today is all you will ever have, will you still be satisfied? If the house you're living in that you don't like, you ain't satisfied with, don't expect another house. If you're not satisfied with what God has given you today, don't expect bigger tomorrow. Stay satisfied. Satisfied with where you are. For God said, I will never fail you. I will never abandon you. That's why you got to stay satisfied. Because while you're fretting, God is working. While you're complaining, God is positioning things. That's why you've got to be able to say, hey, I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm not going to let routine rob my joy. Are you satisfied with where you are? Are you satisfied with who you are? Are you satisfied with who you know? Come on, somebody. Are you satisfied? Because if you're satisfied, no day is ever routine. Just ask Mary. Every day with me is like a party. Enjoy the ride. I also believe this. You can never let a season become your story. You can never let a season become your story. Yes, seasons are part of the story, but they are not the whole story. God has more for your life than just one season. We are currently in a season, but do not let this season rewrite your story. God has more in store for your life than 2020. God has more in store for your life than loss and pain and grief and hurt and all the things that could go with it. God still has a destiny stored up for you. He has treasures prepared for you. He has life prepared for you. He has favor prepared for you. And yet if you stay stuck in your season, you'll never experience the story. I want to experience the full story. I don't want to be caught in chapter 2, my life sucks. I want to get to chapter 3 where God turns it all around and we see joy instead of mourning. We see God take and make beauty out of the ashes. Come on, church. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're hoping for. See, the truth is so many people get stuck in the rut of where they are instead of staying and holding on to the belief that God has a purpose and a plan. even in the pain, even in the hurt, even in the loss. Abraham and Sarah could have stayed in their season of barrenness. Abraham and Sarah could not stay in their season of barrenness. Ruth could not stay in her season of loss. Moses could not stay in the season of the wilderness. Noah could not stay in the season of living on the ark. Rahab could not stay in the season of living in sin. Paul and Silas could not stay in their season of prison. And Jesus did not stay in his season of 3 days in the grave. He rose from the grave victorious for you and for me. What am I trying to say? Do not let your season become a prison. Can't do it. The Bible declares it this way: I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every and any situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I think we like the part of the scripture that says I can do all things, but we forget what the all things is talking about. The all things is talking about whether you have, you can do all things. When you don't have, you could still do all things. When you're on the mountain, you can do all things. When you're struggling in the valley, you can do all things. Let's make sure we understand the scripture means God meets you on the highs and the lows and will always bring you through to your divine destiny. See, I've also learned this: you can never make long-term decisions on short-term problems, because those seasons pass. That's why everyone's trying to create new normals, new adjustments. Don't create a new normal on a temporary situation. Just let it sink in for a second. Sometimes it's got to be like a beef stew. You got to let it simmer just a little bit. You got to think about the word, not just amen. You got to say, whoa, am I making long-term decisions on a short-term problem? I'm moving. South Dakota, I'm coming. You're making a long-term decision on a short-term problem. I got to leave. No. Wow, she's driving me crazy. Newsflash. Your spouse will always drive you crazy. And you know what? If you go down the road and think you're going to upgrade to another spouse, they'll drive you crazy too. If you can't be content with who you got, you won't be content with who you want. So you might as well just start acting, living, walking like you've already got the gem you've got. God has blessed your life. That was for somebody, because I had no plan on saying that. What's the promise of Scripture? You'll do all things through Christ's strength. Never let a season become your story, or you will miss the ride of your life. That's why you've got to be patient in the process. I am not a patient person. But this is important. It's because I've discovered when I get impatient, I don't know if you're like this, I make bad decisions. Anybody else? When I try and rush God's plan or get ahead of God's agenda, how many of you have ever made an impatient decision? Yeah, we all do, right? So I've learned there's two things you can do that help define you. You ready for this? Get ready. These are huge. Your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. These two things define your life. Your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. How many people are so impatient till they get that thing they've always wanted, and then their attitude, look at what God has done for me. I retired at 35. Should have worked as hard as me. Now, sometimes hard work doesn't change someone's destiny. Retiring at 35 isn't my destiny. I'd go insane. I'm working till 99. Come on now. I'm going to keep going. See, your patience when you have nothing reveals who you trust. Your attitude when you have everything reveals when you lost trust. That it was all God. Be patient in the process. Paul wrote to the church in Rome. But if we look forward to something we don't yet have, we must wait patiently and confidently. Not just be patient, but be confident. See, patience and confidence are siblings. You will not be able to be patient in life if you are not confident in your God. When you lose patience, it's usually because you've lost confidence. Come on, that's good preaching. And I think a lot of people have lost confidence, not patience. See, if you don't have confidence, you'll never be patient. The only way to be patient is to increase your confidence level in God. Here's the thing. This might hit you right between the eyes. I can't have faith in God and faith in me at the same time. I think some of us, we're trying to do God's job. You know what I've learned? There is a God, and I'm not him. And the moment I try and step into what God is supposed to do, all right, Todd, you want to try it? Good luck. Watch the face plant time and time again. Every time I try and get ahead of God's agenda. See, I can't have faith in God and me at the same time. When I trust myself, I look at my circumstances. When I trust my God, I look at my Savior. I've got to make sure I'm looking to him because faith creates patience in God's plan. Would you say this after me? Say this. My patience is growing. Confidence is coming back. In Jesus' name. And then finally today, you got to learn to get your laugh back. You got to just be able to laugh. Why? Because I believe we're about to experience an outbreak of some outrageous, contagious joy. I believe 2020 has tried to suck the joy out of us, but I believe God is breathing joy back in. He's speaking joy back in. He's delivering joy to your life because God wants to rush into your situation. He wants to meet your needs. He wants to answer your prayers. And he wants to unleash some God-sized miracles in your life because by this time next year. Yeah, but it's hard to see by this time next year because I'm here. That's why you have to have faith and trust in God. That's why you have to be patient in the process. But by this time next year, we're going to hear stories. It's time to get your laugh back today. Because if you don't have joy when you're in your problems, you still won't have joy after you get through your problems. Joy is not determined by your problems. It's determined by who is Lord over your lives. Would you look at somebody right now and say, get your joy back? Come on, say it with a little bit of attitude. Get your joy back. Now here's the thing you got to discover. Where does your joy come from? Where does your laugh come from? Remember what Sarah said? After she had the birth of her son, a miracle of 25 years of waiting, he said, God has brought me laughter. Just stop right there for a second, because I think you can try and find joy in a lot of places. You can find joy in all these, but that's short term. I don't want short-term joy for a long-term life. I'm not planning on going out in 2 years. I'm planning on preaching until I'm 99 years old. I'm planning on doing what God's called me to do. What did Caleb say when he saw the promised land? I was young, but now I'm 85 years old and I can still go up and take the mountain. We need some people of faith. Come on, I'm talking to the older people in the house today. This is not time to retire. This is not time to just leave it to the next generation. The next generation still needs you. We need your wisdom. We need your authority. We need the blessing of a previous generation. We need you. Don't sell out and short sell yourself. This is time for you to say, man, this is my time. But with a little high pitch. This is my time. Not like Johnny for a minute. See, I believe God's about to bring your joy back. In 2020, it's been difficult. Let's be honest. We don't minimize the virus or what's happened. It's a major issue. We know that, right? But the enemy tried to rob our joy in 2020. But in 2021, God's going to restore the fun. 2021, the year of fun. The year where we enjoy the presence of God. The year where we smile in the midst of everything. I'm ready for a dose of joy. Are you? I'm ready for an injection of joy. Is anyone sick and tired of the Rain on Your Joy news that happens 24/7, 365 on every channel out there, whether it's Fox, whether it's CNN, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's Newsmax, whether it's whatever the other one is, or whether it's this, or whether it's local. I'm done with it. I can't let that reside within my spirit. Is there anybody who still believes that God takes and makes things beautiful out of the ashes of ruins? Is there anyone who still believes that God can give you joy the next morning? Your next year is about to happen. God is shifting things, and the years of waiting have been years of preparation. The reason why you didn't get the blessing yet is you weren't ready for it yet. And God is moving things and maneuvering things. But let me tell you, for Church Unleashed, I tell you, I promise you today, I feel it in my spirit that God is about to interrupt your everyday ordinary with an extraordinary move of His presence, where He's going to elevate you, He's going to promote you, and you're going to be in a totally different place by this time next year. And I'm not just talking financial, I'm not talking occupation, I'm talking spiritual, I'm talking emotional. God wants to do something. And I want to encourage you this, church. Never apologize for your joy. When you're around miserable people, why are you so happy? What have you been smoking? What have you been drinking to be so happy? I'm drunk on the Holy Spirit. I'm enjoying the blessings of God. Yeah, but how can you do that? Another lockdown's coming. Doesn't matter. They can lock me down, but they can never lock Him down. I'm still good. I've still got His blessings. See, when everyone else is doom and gloom, here's what I want to challenge our church to do. Walk in a holy optimism. God, I see the goodness and your favor even in the middle of tragedy. God, I see your hand of blessing. God, I see your mercy. I see your grace. I see your compassion. Lord, look at what our church is even doing. That in the middle of this, we're preparing to bless people because we have a holy optimism that God, every resource that we give to others, God will return back to us so we can help even more people. That's a holy optimism. Most churches cut their budget in 2020. Our budget has grown because we're giving more, doing more, becoming more for people. Now, here's why you got to get your laugh back. This is very important. Listen to what Sarah says next. All who hear about this miracle will laugh with me. Joy is transferable. And if you're walking around miserable, please stop complaining that your spouse is miserable. Wow, thank you, Pastor Matt. If your office is so down, why are you falling in line with the office depression? Why don't you raise the temperature in the room, and why don't you bring some outrageous, contagious joy with you? It's a good day. Do you like your job? No. Do you like how much they pay you? No. Why are you so happy? I'm just grateful I got a job. Just grateful that this is enough to pay my bills. I'm looking for more. I'm praying for God. But right now, I know my next year's coming. I'm ready for it. When's it going to happen? Well, by this time next year. I believe it. God's going to shift things in your favor, and He's going to bless you. And when people see the joy in you, they're going to want some of that. You'll be like, I need to get a little closer. Rub some of that joy on me. There's got to be a point where we start to be outrageous, contagious joy carriers. Because here's the reality. We have an epidemic of depression in our country today. And I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't see it on the news very often. I don't see it by politicians. But I can tell you, this church will not be silent when it comes to mental wellness. Because all those things affect everything. There has been nationally a 200% increase in the suicide rate. That should infuriate every single one of us. One is too many. People need to understand their value, their purpose in life, but also get the help they need. People can't sleep. Through the pandemic, people are sleeping 2 to 3 hours less per night. That's unhealthy. It creates all these other things. People are having a hard time eating. They're sick in their stomach. People need real, lasting joy. And I tell you, they are not going to find it at the liquor store. I mean, that'll stay open when we shut churches down. In San Diego, they just shut down churches. You know what's open? Topless bars are open. What do you think's cleaner, God's house or a nudie bar? Come on now. And yet, we must stand up as the church of Jesus Christ. That's not okay. Not on my watch and not our church. As long as our liquor store's open and abortion clinics are open, I can tell you, this church, we ain't closing down. Ain't closing down. If Lidl can be open, Stop and Shop can be open, then this house can be open too. Because this is a spiritual nourishment that all of us need. Because it's an injection of joy in our hearts. The world needs joy. Church, do not forfeit your joy. Do not abdicate your joy. Say it and spray it. Wheel it and deal it until you feel it. Get your joy back. I love taking joyrides. I think life is a joyride, if you allow it to be. This week, we were doing some work, unloading all these pallets, and we had a forklift come in. Now, I'm not a certified forklift operator, which you're supposed to be, I should say that. But it looked so much fun. Looked like so much fun. So I literally decided to do figure eights in the parking lot with this forklift. Now, it feels faster than it really is. I was like, this is so much fun. And I'm just going in circles, and about a few minutes later, after this joyride, I was having a great time. Draining out, I'm doing my thing. We had to move something in the back, and no one really told me that forklifts are not meant for dirt. So this uncertified forklift operator goes behind this thing to move this thing, and before you know it, I'm in like 18 inches deep of mud. Now, it's not our forklift. Next 2 hours, we're pushing it. We're tying ropes. We're not doing anything. Thinking, oh my gosh. Finally, I said, Benson, you got to call the guy, whatever it's going to be. We end up calling the guy. He comes over. I can't get it out. We have to call a tow truck. Tow truck comes in, pulls the thing out. We get it out. What's the very first thing Todd Bishop does? I go back to figure eights in the parking lot. Here's the point of that. Just because you get sunk in something short term, do not let it rob you of your joy. Get back out there and do some figure eights again. Some of you have been like, oh man, but if I do something bad's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. It's life. Bad things happen. But we still smile when those bad things come. We still have the joy of the Lord. That's our strength. That renews our spirits on the inside. Because God's doing something on the inside of our lives. I can't let one situation that happens rob me of my joy. Somebody needs this message today. And it's simply this. You cannot let a temporary setback keep you from long-term victory. 2020 is a short-term setback in the season of the lifespan you will have. It's time to walk in victory. It's time to trust God. It's time to get your laugh back and enjoy the ride of your life. There's an old song we used to sing in church. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. Every day I wake up, it's better than the day before. Why? Because it's a new day. You got breath in your lungs? You got blood pulsating through your veins? You got a brain that works at least half the time? Then you should be grateful and filled with some outrageous, contagious joy. Would you close your eyes as we pray?